Welcome to the Holistic Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Keisha Blair, wife, mother of 3, author of Holistic Wealth, and founder of the Institute on Holistic Wealth. The show will showcase various experts in the key pillars of holistic wealth. Each week, we deliver the best information on how to become holistically wealthy and live your best life. Today, we have a special guest with us. We have Nastassia, and she is the founder of the Perfect Startup Incubator and the Mind Designer Consulting. Her expertise comes from her own journey as an entrepreneur and decades spent as a business development expert. Today, she focuses on leading women through launching and finding joy in running their own businesses. She has a new book out, The Perfect Launch Plan: How to Get Out of Your Own Way so you can finally start a business. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Really happy to be here, and I hope we get to share some really valuable insights with your audience today.
Yes, absolutely. It's great having you, and I would just love to start about hearing your journey and what led you to start this business.
Yeah, I guess you could say I've always had the entrepreneurial sort of spirit. I tried many, many times working for others and working in the corporate environment. And it always felt a bit constricting because I am an idea person. So constantly trying to implement new things or try new ways of creating things or innovating processes that are already in place. And when you are in that big corporate environment, there is just, the processes are a lot slower, right? And there's so many hoops to jump through, and you're sort of stuck wearing one hat, like doing your role. And I've always just been really comfortable in stepping into multiple roles and learning new things. I love, reading different topics and finding out more about different departments. So even while I was in business development, I was always learning about marketing and, learning about media buying and trying to learn a little bit about engineering and software. So it just always felt really natural for me to just sort of to want to do more. And so when I finally decided that it was time for me to sort of step out on my own, I took nuggets of things that I knew I could do well, and really found that there was a pattern in the way that I worked, and which always led people to seek me out for advice or seek me out for that kind of sounding board experience so they could talk things through. So I was really drawn towards coaching. And so I left my industry. I became a certified in coaching. And because years prior to that, I had tried to start a business that was somewhat aligned with my passions, but ultimately not. And it actually didn't go quite so well. I considered it a failure. But what happened was, when I started getting into coaching, I really ran into the same mindset over and over again with the women that I was working with. And it was this idea that, that they sort of had to have this facade of being really strong or of being able to do everything on their own. And I really identified with that, thinking back on that first failed business. And so I took that experience of failing at business, coupled it with the new experience of succeeding at business. And that's what led to this book, The Perfect Launch Plan. In that, I go through the process of launching a business step by step, but which you can find in a lot of places. But what I did that to me felt very needed and unique was that with each step, I paired the fears and the insecurities and the doubts that sprung up, during that process. So just as you will learn how to, write up a business plan or figure out your proof of concept and your minimum viable product and all the logistical things that go around launching a business, I also walk people through fear of failure and imposter syndrome and money issues and all of those things that come up. And so these little fears and these insecurities and these doubts sort of help me mold how I approach coaching and consulting. because today I do both. So I consult with diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I also do lead women, specifically women who come from underrepresented backgrounds, through this process of launching while co-designing with them the mindsets that will get them to get to where they want to be.
Okay, no, that sounds good. And it sounds like such important work that's needed, especially with underrepresented women. And I was telling you about this Instagram post that you had. I think it's your latest one. And I just wanted to read a portion of it because it resonated with me, and I'm sure it would resonate with so many people. And I just want to get your views on it because I thought it was really deep and really well said. So in the post, you say, I never had a coach or mentor who could relate to being an immigrant, a person of color, the years of conditioning I had been through to become a nice girl, or how childhood trauma, shame, or low self-esteem could hold someone back as an entrepreneur. And I thought, wow, so many women could relate to that. And it's so true that when, you're an immigrant, a woman of color, a person of color, there's so many obstacles. And then, of course, you couple that with that childhood trauma that you mentioned, shame or low self-esteem. And of course, that has impacts on an entrepreneur. But I really, really want to get your insights on this. And you mentioned in the book, and of course, in your own coaching too, that you pair this type of mindset work with the, kind of business launch, practical tips. But how has that played out for you in your own life as an immigrant and as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so there's just so much to unpack there, right? Because there's so many different experiences. Speaking specifically to the immigrant experience, for me, in the age that I moved to the United States, I was 12 years old. It's that very fragile age where you're going through puberty, but you're also stepping into that space where you're trying to figure out who you are going to become as a person. And to couple that with not speaking the language, being in a completely new environment, a completely new culture, what that did for me is it made me feel like I had to diminish myself. It made me feel like I had to blend in and sort of disappear and become invisible. Just that idea of having to diminish yourself in the moment where you're trying to figure out who you are, it can be so damaging, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those feelings can last for years and years and years. This idea of assimilation, and it depends on the background that you're coming from. I think now a lot of more immigrants are more open to the idea of holding on to their cultures, and we don't see so much of that mindset that we had a few years ago. But still, there's that feeling of assimilation of like, catch up, speak the language, and sort of figure out what the culture is about so that you don't feel like you're being thrown to the wolves, because 12-year-olds can be brutal. So that experience really shaped a lot of who I became later on in life, and it took a long time for me to be okay with being the outspoken person that I am naturally, with being okay with standing out. And it was through different ways of exploring, like sort of dipping my toe into the pool of like, what does it really look like to be me? That I am now able to identify with a lot of my clients that I coach, right? So because I do work with immigrants and I do work with women of color. And so I think women in general have certain things that sort of like we kind of have, hammered into our brains, obviously a lot to do with body image and a lot to do with that, at least coming from the background that I came from in South America, the idea of the nice girl, of like, don't speak up too much, don't rock the boat too much. So being able to understand that, it makes it a lot easier for me to guide my clients through the process of first identifying it, right? I think a lot of us are still walking around without being able to name it, without even realizing that we're doing it. So we walk through that process first of identifying that that's actually coming up. Because I come across so many women who have so many incredible ideas, but they get paralyzed by the fear of exposure, right? Because if they put themselves out there, they'll feel like, they're stepping out of that role that they had imposed on them of being nice, of being quiet, of not rocking the boat. So we really have to identify it first, name it as a fear or as a limiting belief, and then we can figure out the best steps for each individual to slowly step away from that process, or maybe bringing that experience into whatever their product or service is to maybe help their own customers in turn, right? But definitely having that experience helps me connect with and reach my customer where they are first, rather than just throw them into the deep end and say, go launch a business, right? Because if you just launch a business, sure, you can have all the steps laid out for you, but the moment you get there and all of a sudden you have these issues coming up with not being too outspoken, or money issues because of what you grew up listening, or fear of failure. I mean, your business has no leg. There are no legs to stand on, because those things will creep into your business, right? Your personal insecurities as a founder and CEO, they're inevitable. They'll come up. And so you either can let them stand in your way, or like I did with my first launch, or you can find ways to work through it. And I think that had I had a coach, had I had somebody who could hold my hand and go, no, this is normal. You can get through this. Let me show you how. I know I would have done things differently. So this is kind of me stepping into that role for other people.
Mm-hmm. And that's so interesting, because you mentioned the first launch as well, and potentially that things didn't go right there. And I'm just wondering if you could share with us what are some of the things that could potentially go wrong in a launch, and any words of wisdom that you may have.
Well, so there are two sides, right? So one is that very business strategy part of the business launch, and the other is this mindset or personality that one must sort of be aware of. So on the personality side, there were so many things that got in the way for me there. I definitely had I didn't know my money story. I hadn't had time to sit down and go, like, what are my beliefs around money? It turned out that I had a fear of actually being successful. It turned out that I had this thing in my head that told me, well, if you do get money, you won't know what to do with it, right? So I had all these limiting beliefs around there, which for sure got in the way of me making smarter decisions and smarter choices. Definitely had a fear of exposure. I knew I wanted to launch something, but I didn't want my name to be attached to it. I didn't want people to know who I was. There were all these little things that crept up, and I obviously couldn't tell that that's what was happening. But there were personal fears and personal limiting beliefs that got in the way daily. And then on the logistical, more business tactical side, I think one thing that I didn't know then, and I love to spread the word on now, is you don't have to hold your idea of your product or service as so precious.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people sort of stay in their little mind or their lab or their little space creating this quote unquote perfect product or perfect service.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put it out there. But let me tell you, it's so much easier to let your customers build their product for you, right? So when you know who you want to serve and who you want to reach, just go and talk to them and have them co-create that product for you. Because then by the time you're ready to launch, you'll know there'll be people out there who are ready to run towards you with money in hand, ready to buy your product, rather than finally putting something out in the world that you think is perfect. And everyone's looking around like, we didn't ask for this. And you don't have any customers.
That's true. I completely agree. And there's so much you said there that I want to ask about. I'm hoping I remember it all. But you mentioned the money story and how that can impact us, when launching a business. And I really wanted to hear more about that, because as you know, and I want to ask you this too afterwards about, that personal financial identity quiz, but I've been doing a fair bit of writing around that too. So I'm eager to hear about, that whole money story and how not knowing that money story can really impact us. I think many people will be like, well, what would my money story be? And so people are listening and they're going, I don't know what that is. So can you tell us a bit more about that and the potential negative impacts that could have when we're not self-aware or when we don't even know what our money stories are?
Well, we all have one, right? We all have a money story. I think that, whether you come from a really financially secure background or whether you come from a lot of struggle, those are two different stories, but they're stories nonetheless. And they each create or build certain beliefs in you. And so I think that to take some time and to sit down and really just try to think back and remember, what are the things that I've always heard about money? What were the people around me saying about money? What were What were their actions around money? When was I introduced to it? And when I was, what was it like? Did we ever really talk about it? Was it talked about it all the time? So you want to just sit down and take stock of the things that helped shape your view. I mean, so many women that I've coached, we are getting into the nitty-gritty of things, and next thing you know, they are not willing to do something or willing to just jump in too quickly into something else or invest too quickly. And we have to take that moment to pause and go, what's going on here, right? Why are you so afraid of making this investment? Or why are you so eager to keep throwing money at this thing, or whatever falls in between? And what happens a lot is that we end up uncovering truths that, or uncovering beliefs that are no longer true for them, right? So, I've worked with someone recently who had this mindset of you must constantly work, you must constantly be available, and 16-hour days are normal because lots of work equals more money, and more money is the basis for success. But when we broke down what her ideals really were and what her ideal lifestyle looked like and what she was really after, money didn't come into it until sort of like way down the list, right? And then she realized that, I have been working all this time, but the more time that I put in didn't necessarily equal more money. And even if this money would have been gone, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And we start breaking the beliefs down, and all those walls start crumbling. And then you can look at it with a fresh view and go, what story do I want to create now? This was my story then, believing that there was never enough, believing that hard work was the norm, believing that you must hoard it and put it away and never touch it. That was then. What do I want to believe now? Right? And so in that case, the new belief was, I want to believe that me putting some money into my business is going to come back to me. And I'm going to invest it in this way so that it can come back in this way. Right? And the new belief is, I am starting a business because I want more freedom to spend more time with my kids at home. And if I believe that 16-hour days are normal, then where is that freedom go? Where is that freedom going to come into play? So figuring all that out and like setting new sets of beliefs, and obviously being really gentle with oneself, because those things aren't changed overnight, right? It'll creep up again. You'll find yourself going there again, but having that awareness makes it so much easier to help yourself stop in your tracks and go, wait a second, am I acting like my old story, or am I moving towards my new story?
Very wise words. And so I have to segue into the next question, which is on the personal identity framework. Because in my book, I mentioned that each one of us should know our personal financial identities, and we need to know how to harness its strengths. So I'm wondering if you could share with us your results from the quiz and any insights you may have in terms of your own money story. I think that would be amazing, especially because we just spoke about that. And in terms of the old money story and the new money story, and how you've seen yours play out in launching your business and in making your business thrive and making your lifestyle thrive for you. Any insights around that would be great.
I did your quiz and I believe I was what do you call it? A maximalist?
Yes.
And so and actually I was really excited by that, because I feel like that wouldn't have come out that way previously in my old story.
Right. That's interesting. I want to hear about that too. Like, really? Tell me more.
I'm really excited because I feel like the knee-jerk reaction to getting that result is, oh no, I'm frivolous with money. That's not good, right? But that's not how I see it at all, because I feel like in the past, let's say, for example, building up some debt, right? I feel like in the past that would have made me freak out. Because you feel this sort of heavy burden sort of always haunting you, right? Whereas now, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, I'm much more relaxed if that were to happen, because I know that that's an investment, right? It's putting something in so I can get something out. So if that's a resource for me at the moment, then great, I'll use that resource. And I'm really grateful. I'm actually, in the beginning, when I was changing my money story, that was a big thing for me, is to, if I were to accrue debt, look at it and go, thank you for having been available to me when I needed it. Because that's what that really means, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were in a tight spot, you needed something, and somehow that was there. It was available.
Yes.
And so my long journey with my money story is changing that mindset of from scarcity to plentiful and always available. And it's always coming in, it's always flowing in and through, right? So it's not as precious as it was before.
Mm-hmm.
There is more of an idea of a flow. It comes in, it goes out, it comes in again, it goes out again, it keeps coming in, it keeps coming in, it keeps coming in. So when I saw that maximalist, I think, or maximalist, now I don't remember the term.
Yeah, the maximalist. Yeah.
When I saw that, like I said, yeah, that was that little ping that was like, oh, I know I would not have liked this before. But now I can really embrace it and find the good in it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to tell you, I interviewed for the podcast another maximalist yesterday. You'll hear her episode. Her name's Polly, and she's a coach as well. And she got her result of maximalist and she was just over the moon. And she said, this is me to a T. And she did mention, yes, that when she was in her 20s, like she had, certain amounts of debt. But she's realized that, and it's so aligned with what you were saying, that because she's invested over 80,000 in her own personal development, in terms of coaching courses and all these courses. And she has used, that money to invest in herself, invest in her business, and she's seeing huge rewards now. And it's amazing just to hear the insights that come, because I loved your insights on thinking about gratitude for that debt, because it took you out of that tight spot that you were in, and having that access and having to be able to pull on that is just tremendous, because you're right. We should have a certain amount of gratitude for that. And then, in the midst of that, okay, well, yeah, how can I pull myself out? But that is absolutely true. And, it's so funny. I love hearing from the maximalists because, as I said, normally the maximalists have the biggest hearts in the room. They're so interested in making others happy. They're interested in the lives of others. I mean, she gave me the example too of her first live event and even serving champagne, because she just wanted everyone in the room to feel special, everyone to be happy. And she said, ultimately, it all paid off in dividend scores. I mean, her business is just super successful. So I'm always happy to hear from maximalists, because I know that, people will look at that and think, oh, yeah, I know that's, kind of like the lavish spender, but there's so much that they bring to the table. And in terms of how they can succeed within that framework, it's just amazing to see.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, absolutely. And so I'm wondering if, in terms of your business, because, we're talking about the book and the launch plan, and I'm eager to hear about that, because is there anything that you can share in terms of how to launch? Because I think many people trip up on that as well, how to launch. And, it's so funny because I know it varies from industry into industry, business to business, and even on our personal story and our personal money stories. But I don't know if you can share any insights from the book, any tips and strategies for the audience.
Sure, I can. I just want to touch on one quick point that you made here from your guest. And it's this idea of investing in yourself. I mean, any time that I invest in myself, it has always paid off. Of course, I'm completely biased because I also do coach, but I continue to invest in coaching for myself. I have from day one. And if it weren't for the coaches that I invested in, I would not, with 100% belief, not be here today, right?
Yeah.
Because those are the people that got me to find those nuggets of figuring out, ooh, there's a new belief that I can adopt, or there's a new strategy, or there's something else that I can learn. So yes, I'm a big proponent of investing in yourself, whatever way that looks like for you, right? It could be as small as investing time in yourself and allowing yourself this luxury of listening to a business podcast every day or every week, right? So the little investments that you put in yourself, I mean, pay back in dividends. So just wanted to point that out. But yeah, in terms of how to launch, like I said before, letting your customer build your product is one of the major things that a lot of people sort of miss out on. But something else that I do a lot with my clients, and it's extremely helpful for them to be like realize what kind of business they actually want to launch, is to figure out the lifestyle that you want, right? I am huge on the idea of ease and joy and bringing into your life the things that you want to bring into your life via your business or via becoming an entrepreneur from day one. I don't like the idea of having to wait for lots of things. So I want myself and my clients to, from day one, create the business that's going to bring in the things they want to have in their life. So I hear a lot of things as themes, right? So I think I mentioned before freedom. Freedom is usually one of the first things. Freedom to run things your own way, freedom to create your own schedule, freedom to be as creative as you want, whatever way that freedom may look like for people. So freedom is huge. Time management is huge. Obviously, financial security is huge. But where we start really, before we talk business at all, we talk about lifestyle. So I actually have my clients sit down and write their ideal day to day, like write their schedule. So I ask them, go into specifics. Give me hour by hour of your day. What time are you waking up? When you wake up, what are you doing? Do you have time to have a relaxed breakfast? Are you exercising? Are you just getting your kids ready to go to school? Are you the one dropping them off? What do you wish you could do with your day?
Yes.
And then what we do is we take that ideal lifestyle and we look for the gaps in that day where the business can fit in, not the other way around. I don't want people to fit their lifestyle around their business. I want their business to be an addition to their life, not a detriment, right? So we create that lifestyle, ideal lifestyle. And what comes up from that is you create your own custom launch plan from that. Because if you are someone who has loads of time and you just cannot wait to be working on your business every single day, and you just want to be in there 6 hours a day, great. Your launch plan will be dictated by that availability of yours, right?
Yes.
However, if you're a mom of 4 or 6 that I've worked with before, you don't have that much time. So your launch plan, rather than being a 3-month launch plan, is going to be a 18-month launch plan or a year launch plan. And that should be okay with you. And if it's not, where do you want to compromise? And is that compromise worth, taking some of that time away? Is it? Great. Let's figure out how to make it happen. It isn't? Perfectly fine. Let's put that timeline back the way it was. Right. So I'll use myself as an example. When I was first starting this business, this consulting firm, I had just had a baby then, and I really could only work in nap times. So I had these little moments throughout my day of 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. And that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to be stressed out as a new mom, figuring out how to do it all. I knew that I wanted it to be this process to be filled with ease and to be filled with joy and to really feel that freedom from day one of going, waking up every day and going, wow, I'm starting a business and I get to enjoy the time that I want here with this new precious being. So that idea of crafting the ideal lifestyle first, I'd say is one of my biggest tips. So then you can sort of, again, create that launch plan around the ideal lifestyle and not wait until your business, is 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years old until you can get that lifestyle back.
Absolutely. And as you're talking, I'm just thinking about even book launches, which is quite similar. I remember when we launched Holistic Wealth and I saw this was my first book, obviously, and we saw other established authors doing round the world, literally going around the world, Europe, everywhere, every single day, talking about their books to massive audiences. And as a mom of 3, I just felt just exhausted just even looking at that. And it took me a while to come to terms, well, you know what? It's not my ideal launch plan. And even if somebody gave me a ticket around the world now to go, every night to audiences talking about, would I want that for me? And the answer is no. The answer is simply no. I have kids in school and they're my priority. So when I hear you speak about values and crafting your ideal day and your ideal launch, and I mean, that's something that I talk about too in the Holistic Wealth Personal Workbook. It's just amazing because it's true, because, there's the temptation to think this is the way I should be doing it. But as you mentioned, if you're comfortable with an 18-month launch or a 2-year launch, and just taking it one day at a time, one step at a time, and doing your whatever you need to do over a longer period of time because it fits your life and it fits your plan, then there's no need for the guilt. There's no need for the worry, and there's no need, to be thinking, well, wow, I should be on this world tour talking to audiences every night. And it's a journey. And I think life is a journey, and we're all different individuals and nothing works for everyone the same way. So I think that's amazing. So can you tell the audience where to find you, your website and social media?
Sure, absolutely. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at The Mind Designer. And my website is theminddesigner.com. And there you can find more information about how to work individually with me. If we still have space, those spaces are limited, or join our group sessions and our group programs, or join our private online community. And that's where you can also find the Perfect Launch Plan book.
Okay, perfect. And thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. It was amazing having you here.
Thank you so much. It was really nice being here.
Thank you for joining us this week on Holistic Wealth with Keisha Blair. Make sure to visit our website, KeishaBlair.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you will never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. Are you a member of the Institute on Holistic Wealth? If not, what are you waiting for? Go to Institute on Holistic Wealth /memberships to choose your membership plan and join. As a member, you get so many perks. Free worksheets, advice, coaching, and a member's workshop to design an intentionally designed life. You need to figure out your life purpose? Take the Build Your Life Purpose Portfolio online self-paced course. You're struggling with all your money decisions? Take the free financial identities quiz and then take the course. You recently had a breakup, job loss, or experienced the death of a loved one? Take the Holistic Healing course. You need an overall plan to achieve holistic wealth? We will help you figure out your holistic wealth blueprint. And of course, if you want to start making money by helping others achieve holistic wealth, become a certified holistic wealth consultant. Regardless of what career you've got, the Institute will show you how to increase your income and walk in your purpose. The sooner you join, the sooner you start to achieve a more holistically wealthy lifestyle. And you're going to want to stay for a very long time. So go to Institute on Holistic Wealth /memberships to join. If you haven't read the book yet, pick up a copy of the award-winning, best-selling Holistic Wealth 32 Life Lessons to help you find purpose, prosperity, and happiness.